Okay, so good evening, Deepika. Welcome to this event, Leaders and Libraries. And before we get started into the conversation, let me introduce you to the audience. So, hi, viewers and listeners. You have been listening to multiple leaders over the last 1.5 months on Leaders and Libraries. All of them have been coming and talking about many books that have inspired their lives. And I've had a lot of inputs on LinkedIn that the learnings are pretty interesting. We have yet another energetic, bubbly, enthusiastic guest, Ms. Deepika Singh, who's the founder of She Means Business, and most of you would have seen her all over on LinkedIn on She Means Business and her regular quick tidbit that she does with all the gestures and glittery eyes and body language without much of no voice, like a deaf movie, but a silent movie, but it's all hand stuff. So it's very, very interesting stuff. I love that Deepika work of yours. She's a speaker regularly on events and forums. She's a digital content creator, a life skills and motivation coach. There's a lot of work in the space of content and marketing space. And I'm so happy to have you, Deepika. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation and honoring us by being on board.
Thank you so much, Raji, for having me. This is one of my favorite subjects, books. And I'm delighted that you reached out to me. And that was a very glowing introduction. Thank you so much for that as well. But yeah, it's a pleasure being here. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Fantastic. I'm so excited to have this conversation. So before we get started into the book, which I'm going to expose in a couple of moments from now, let me start with this first question. How did and how early did your romance with books start or
Uh,
association with books start?
okay. Very, very, very early. So my mom was a reader,
Hmm.
she would gobble books and she was very keen that her kids should do that as well because, she always said that that's the best way
Hmm.
to, pass your time.
Hmm.
So she introduced me to books very early. We used to stay in the small town called Kharagpur. And at, I think about 3 or 4 years, she started introducing me to comics.
Hmm.
And the first comics that I really got hooked to were Amar Chitra Kathas.
Ah.
And even today, when I have to gift kids, all my friends' kids and all, if I have to gift them something, it'll always be a Jataka tale or, Amar Chitra Kathas. Yeah, because, even when I first started reading them, just the stories, firstly, they were so engrossing. And
Yeah.
the way it was all put together, the illustrations, those,
Correct.
interesting expressions, there was no way I would not get hooked to books. So that was my first so apart from everything else that I started reading, I think it was the Amar Chitra Kathas that really stuck.
Hmm.
And then my first book, again, the first book that I read was a book called The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid
Hmm.
Blyton.
Hmm.
Amazing book. Again, there is no way that you can't fall in love with books with that book because there was this magical tree. And
Hmm.
on top of that tree, magical lands would come and stay for a few days. Land of ice cream, land of toys.
What a
And there were all
fantasy
these,
world.
yeah, and there were all these interesting characters. And then if you stayed too long on that land, then you could get trapped over there. You had to come down. So again, I was completely hooked. And I think I read that book when, again, I started reading books very young. So I think I was some, 8 or 9 when I
Wow.
first read my book.
Very early, very early.
So it's a long journey since then.
Fantastic. That's almost like a fantasy. From Kharagpur, you would want to go to that land. Like all of us would want to become the Raj and Simran and go to Switzerland and do that Hathi Fela ki
Yes,
main bhi Shah Rukh Khan banna
yes,
chahta hu type
yes,
stuff.
yes. I just wanted to be on those lands. Yeah, yeah. Very
Lovely,
interesting.
lovely. So beautiful, beautiful. So how did this journey of starting with Amar Chitra Katha, and I also relate to that a lot, Deepika, because my father used to travel on work. He was in the government service earlier. And whenever he travels out on an inspection for a couple of days and comes back, he would carry that Sarkari suitcase, briefcase of his. We would just eagerly wait because every time he comes back, we would have two books. One was Amar Chitra Katha of any mythological story. He wanted us to get into it. And second was the Tinkle. So ये दोनों हमेशा आता था.
Yeah.
I remember from a 75 paisa tinkle, it went on to some 3 rupees 45 paisa as far as I remember. Abhi to kuch bahut mehanga bikta hai, but that time it was
Huh.
like
Huh.
so I can relate how much is Panchadar. Great stories, isn't it? Great characters.
Awesome.
What
Yeah.
morals of life and leadership lessons today we are
Absolutely.
talking about from
Yeah.
one great book today they gave.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why, I feel there are lots of fancy books nowadays, and I see parents, of course, introducing their kids to lots of interesting stuff. But I still think that those stories, still hold so much worth and value now, which is my gift to kids is always, Panchtantra or Amachitra Katha or Jataka Tales, one of those, because there's so much to learn from them. Really.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. So tell me, Deepika, starting with such fantasy books and mythological stories and all that, you would have moved on to reading some serious books and management and leadership and all that stuff,
Mm.
right? Which would have been the need of your own developmental journey plus also the profession in which you are. How
Right.
did that reading of serious books and management things help you evolve as a leader that you are today?
So for a very long time, I was a
Mm,
fiction reader
mm,
for very long time, and I was a voracious fiction reader.
okay.
But I realized that even when I would read fiction,
Mm,
I would do a lot of dissection of characters and
okay.
learnings. So for a very long, it's not anymore, but for a very long time, there was this book called Fountainhead, which everyone loves to say is their favorite book. I read that book, and I remember thinking about there was this one guy in it called Elsbert Toohey,
Mm,
and I still remember that character. And I think this is exactly what is happening in the world today. There are these couple of people who are able to sway opinions. And I
right.
used to, at that point, he was complete villain. But I
Mm,
also used to get very fascinated with the way he would sway popular opinion.
mm,
He would get the tide to turn. So
mm,
even in fiction books, I realized that there was a lot of learning in terms of characters, in terms of
mm,
situations, etc.
mm, mm.
But having said that, for a very long time, I was a fiction reader. uh, Before I went on to non-fiction books, I started reading other forms of non-fiction. So I fell into
Okay.
management.
Okay.
At the time that I was doing my MBA, there was this magazine called A&M, which is now afaqs.com.
Correct, correct.
So that's how my management reading began.
Got it. Mm.
Yes. And then, of course, I think when I started working,
Mm.
I started reading a lot more, non-fiction. So
Right.
that's how it all started. In fact, I don't even remember what would be the first um, non-fiction book that I would have picked up. My
Mm.
husband, on the other hand, his non-fiction journey started much earlier.
Okay.
He's a very very voracious reader. So between the two of us now, of course, we read a lot. But yeah, I think my journey started with fiction and then it went on to non-fiction. And
Mm.
today, of course, I read a lot lot of management books, lot of non-fiction. And I think books.
Mm.
Uh, while there is a lot of content that you read, short form, long form,
Right.
but the kind of knowledge, and I tell this to a lot of young people who always tell me, but I don't have the time, attention span for books. I'm
Right.
like, what a book can teach you,
Mm.
you know, it is doubtful any other form of content,
I agree.
can, because a book is about a concept,
Mm.
and the author has taken the pains to flesh that concept out,
Correct.
and he's done research. So there will be stories, there will be case studies,
Mm.
and within the book, the larger concept of the book, there will be mini concepts. So the
Mm.
book that we are also going to discuss,
Yeah.
that's also a larger concept. But
Correct.
within that, there are those, smaller concepts to learn from.
True. True.
So there
True.
is so much that a book has to offer,
Absolutely.
not only in terms of just larger concept, but small things that you can apply, to your life. And that has really been my journey. I have picked up small things from so many books that
Mm.
have guided me on how I should deal with
Beautiful.
situations.
Beautiful.
And more than anything else, Rajiv, it gives you such matter for conversations. I love good conversations. And if
Absolutely.
you've read a lot of books, it gives you so much material for such enriching conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I love the most, really,
Absolutely.
about.
In fact, you pulled that out of my mouth because when you read, you are never a silent observer standing mute in a conversation happening. You're able to participate more, add
Yes,
value.
yes,
It helps somewhere subtly to build your image. Visibility goes up, credibility goes up. People look up to you. So a lot of resultant benefits that you get out of those, right? Instead of just looking at
exactly.
them as conversations, there are a lot of benefits that you get, especially in the current business world of networking. It's a huge advantage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I completely agree. Like you rightly said, a lot of learnings from fiction books. I remember this concept of attention to detail that people talk about a lot. I think I first got exposed when I read your who's a famous Sherlock Holmes.
Okay. Yes.
Sherlock Holmes, I
Yes.
realized, my God, attention to detail is such an important competency, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Small things that can add up to, um, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
finding out the truth.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And thank you so much for picking this lovely book. I read this very, very many years back. It's one of the great books by this great author. Uh, Tell me, among all these books, why have you picked this powerful book, The Tipping Point,
Yes, the
by
tipping.
this great person
Yeah.
today?
So, I thought about it and I realize now that, you know, um, the analogy I drew
Hmm,
is between the book and content.
hmm.
So I create content, you know,
Right.
and like a lot of people who create content, you're always waiting for that one piece of content to tip or to go, as what a lot of young people and people in the business now say, go viral,
Hmm,
right? And then I realized, how much of what I'd read in this book made so much sense.
hmm,
As a content creator, sometimes, I think, yeah, I've made a great piece of content. Why are not too many people seeing it? And
hmm,
then you analyze it and then you figure out
hmm,
something has
hmm.
gone wrong. Sometimes you look at a good movie and you think that, why did this not do the kind of business that you expected it to
True,
do?
true.
But sometimes you look at a YouTube channel and you think, wow, this person is doing such brilliant work. Why is this YouTube channel not getting more views?
Correct.
Or why did this little video not go viral?
Hmm,
Because something was missing
hmm,
from those various factors that this book discusses
hmm,
that did not let it tip over, that did
hmm.
not,
Yeah,
let it go viral.
lovely,
So
lovely.
that's when I thought that, lately, because, I've been creating so much content and
Hmm,
this whole obsession with ensuring that your content has as much reach as possible.
true,
I
true.
think that's what made me pick this book, because from a content creator perspective, also, you think so many times about, what can I do to make my content tip over? So I think that's
I
why I
love that.
wanted to.
I like the tipping point. That's an interesting,
Yes,
interesting
yes,
perspective. So let me pull you from the content space a little bit and ask you to wear the cap of a leader. Okay,
leader.
so let's
Yes.
wearing the cap of a leader. I
Hmm,
want to ask you, what do you mean by tipping point for a leader from your own understanding of leadership and what Malcolm is talking in this book?
hmm.
And how would you advise this to the young minds who are listening to you?
Yes, very important. To just little background as far as the book is concerned. So tipping point is when something becomes, I don't want to really use the word, but almost like a revolution.
Right.
People really begin to believe in your vision, right?
Hmm.
Again, I'm going to give a very, very, very trending analogy. There is this show right now called Bad Boy Billionaire, which is about
Yeah.
all these, uh, uh, business owners who at one point were really big, but for whatever reason are not doing so. I mean, it all sort of fell apart, right? I used to work in one of the companies,
Hmm.
and the one thing when I was watching this show, I realized was that the people who were closest to these guys,
Hmm.
to these leaders, they really believe in the vision of those leaders, right?
Okay.
Even now when you watch the show
Hmm.
and you will see people who used to work with these guys, even now there is a sense of, no, we don't understand what went wrong,
Hmm.
it was like this. I was watching this episode as far as
Yeah.
Sahara Shri is concerned, and
Subrata.
everybody, yeah, everybody in that, around him was saying, but he was so good. Similarly, I remember at an annual day at Kingfisher, when I was working at
Hmm.
Kingfisher, Dr. Malia was addressing all the employees, and everyone really believed in his vision.
Hmm.
So I think as a leader, uh, everything that you do, the messages that you give out, the
Hmm.
stickiness thing, the
Hmm.
how you convey your message, how
Hmm.
you get people to buy into your vision, you
Hmm.
know, how you can get a lot of people to sort of agree, to what you're doing on a broader sense, what your
Hmm.
larger vision is, so that
Right.
the person at the last denominator also believes in your vision, and
True.
also in the more narrower sense where people just below you, your team, is willing to carry out what you do. I think that really, as a leader, I think that really is the tipping point, when you are able to take people along with you, when
Hmm.
suddenly people start to believe and buy into your vision. I think that's very, very important. That's my larger takeaway,
Right. Right.
from
Right.
this book. There's a whole lot of other things, the way your message, then you go down to your functions like products, ad, your how your products are doing, what is the messaging for your ad, etc. So
Hmm.
all of that is your shorter functional things. But watching the show, I realized that all of us believed in these guys. you know.
True.
And whatever was happening behind the scenes is it came to as a shock to a lot of us, but we really believed in these guys. And that as a leader, the fact that your message is people buy into you, how does that happen? That is
Hmm.
very critical.
That's very important, right? Absolutely. I think for budding leaders and young minds listening to you, Deepika, it's a very powerful point that you're giving, that so important for them to build the skill to start influencing people at the very start of their journey itself, right? So that as they move
Right.
up the ladder, they can
Right.
start creating multiple tipping points for themselves, their own teams, and their own organizations, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Very
Yes.
true. Very true.
Yeah.
I was watching this latest Apple 2020 event on YouTube. My God, it just blew me off. And I'm a huge fan of Steve Jobs. पूजा के मंदिर में रखा नहीं उतना ही ये photo. उसके अलावा I'm almost that.
I
Right?
know.
My God, what has he created? And
I
still
know.
that aura, that tipping point that he created multiple times, whether it was Macintosh or iPods or
Yes.
iPhones, it's
Yes.
just continuing, isn't it? And people just go
Absolutely.
crazy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that really is it. You know,
Yeah.
when people buy into your vision, and that happens because of various things that you've discussed in the book, right?
Hmm.
So the stickiness of the message.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may have the vision, but have you been able to, sort of percolate it down? Has your message been sticky enough? Have people really bought into your vision?
Correct.
All of that is very, very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is very interesting. So I'm going to take you to a little bit of a detail of this. Okay, now Malcolm beautifully talks about three kinds of people:
Hmm.
the connectors, the
Yes.
mavens,
Havens.
salesmen.
Yes. Salesman. Yeah.
Tell me, what are you first, and
Ah.
what would you give as a strong input to the leaders again for
Hmm.
them to move up using these three concepts?
Okay. So, I think every leader
Um,
has to be a majority of one, but definitely has to also work on the other two.
Okay.
That's what I think. No leader will have all three in equal quantity. If he or she does, I think that's really brilliant. But I think what happens is naturally you have one, and then, but I personally feel that you need to work. You need to figure out where your weakness lies, and maybe you can work on the other two as well. I think I'm a maven, you know.
Explain the three for us a little bit.
Okay, so by being a maven or the acha.
The
So
three elements: connectors,
okay,
mavens,
so connectors are people who know people, right? Very simply. So, and we know enough of these people, who will say, ki, oh, you want this? I know so and so person. Why don't you connect with so and so person? They
Hmm.
thrive on the people that they know. And there's this one thing in the book which I really, really liked, which I actually
Hmm.
want to talk about. Is one of the things that stayed with me. Even I read the book
Yeah.
some years back. What stayed with me was that a lot of us look at people as close friends,
Hmm.
right? And as we grow in life, we have those few friends, and
True.
of course we know people for work and we connect with people for work, right? But these are our close friends, and we pay all our attention to close friends, and then the other people are just mil gaye to mil gaye,
Correct.
meeting pe mile. Connectors, on the other hand, don't look at life like that. They,
Hmm.
of course, have close friends, but they are very happy not being tied up to people, but maintaining those networks, right? So
Beautiful.
they don't get invested in everybody. We
Hmm.
think, oh my God, these are my 10 friends, beyond which it is, too much time consuming to invest myself with other people. They
Hmm.
are very happy with that. They look at those people as just people that I have to stay in touch with,
Right.
network with once in a while. Let me not get emotionally invested with them, but they are people I need to know,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So that's what that stayed with me, and I think that's a huge art. It's a real art. I know people who are so well connected. I'm not. That's something that I'm really working on.
Hmm.
But to be able to maintain that, to be able to pull names out of a hat and say, oh, you need this, I will, why don't I connect you with so and so?
Correct.
That's a connector. A maven is someone who gathers knowledge, has a lot of knowledge, is very curious in life, has to know everything about everything, constantly is adding value, and most importantly, likes to spread that knowledge to people,
Hmm.
right? Now, that knowledge they may spread as is, they may want to add their own analysis, opinion, etc., value to it and spread it. That's a maven. A salesperson is someone who has, I remember Malcolm said it had persuasive
Hmm.
qualities. So it's someone who can take that message basically and
Yeah.
persuade people to buy into it,
Hmm.
right? So those are the three things. Now, as a leader, I think you need to have all three in some varying degrees of, this thing. A connector is important because as you grow, it is your network that will help you.
Absolutely.
Always, always, your ability to pull names out of a hat and get work done, that will help. So that's very required as you're growing. A maven, I think, again, when you're a, so this is to all the people who are, young and will grow to be leaders. You will begin your life as a functional person. You will do sales, you will bring in X amount of revenue. But as you grow, you will get into more strategic positions. You will have teams underneath you, etc. That's when being a maven will really help, because that's when you're not the frontline person. You're not going to a client and getting the revenue, but it's your knowledge, it's your ability to talk to people, it's your ability to share knowledge with your teams. That is what is going to help. As a salesperson, I think you have to be a salesperson all your life, and all of us are salespersons.
Yeah, once a salesperson, always a salesperson.
Yeah, and all of us. So I was doing this session with some young college kids on sales, and they were like, but we don't want to do sales. I said, but we all do sales at some point or the other, because you're convincing your father to buy you an iPhone. वो भी एक किस्म का sales negotiation है. So you're constantly selling something or the other. So I think all of us at some point, whether it's selling of our idea or selling of a product or selling of a concept to someone, or selling of your vision, if you want funds for your company, so all of us have to be also salespersons. Okay, I think I'm a maven. Okay, so because I think of my nature of my job, I'm a trainer. Yeah, I'm a seeker, and I thrive on it. I really thrive on it. So for me, every time I hear something that I don't know about, even if it's a conversation at a social occasion, I need to know. So I will Google immediately, right? When I hear people are doing something, a new business, and I don't understand the product, I want to know. So I will ask, So I have so much curiosity about everything, that I need to know everything. And I have friends who don't get this whole digital marketing, younger influencer marketing. I need to know. So I'm the one who's always explaining things to them. Oh, what do you mean you don't know what influencer marketing is? You don't know BB Vines. So I will be the one. So I love doing that as well. So I will gather information, and then I thrive on teaching people all the information that I have. I really thrive on doing that. But having said that, I think I have, below that, I have some degrees of being a salesperson. I'm not a connector at all. I lack networks, which is something that, and now that I work on my own, I've realized that, how important a network is to get you opportunities. So that's something that I need to work on. But as a leader, I think you need to have varying degrees of all three. So if you feel that there is something that you lack between all three of these, you should definitely work on them.
Right. Is there a high percentage on this, a little on this, little on that kind of a thing that you would want to give as input to people, or can it be a 33.33, 33.33 across all three of them?
I think it doesn't happen as 33.33. To be very fair, I've looked at people and I've realized that no one is like a 33.33. I've not really seen that. I've always seen people have slightly more of one, which I think is okay, because every leader has their own traits, which they, bring to the table. Everybody has their own way of, so because I do a lot of team building activities, so sometimes I see leaders are present, the teams are there. I have seen leaders talk about their vision in very different ways. So every leader brings different traits on the table, but it's a good idea to, if you're even like 60, 20, 20, it's a good idea to start working on your other traits as well, and try and pull them up as you go along.
Yeah, like you yourself, you are saying that you are not a connector. You acknowledge that, you realize that, and you're working on that, because you know the importance of being a connector.
Yes. And I think that is the most important thing. Between these three, I think as you're growing, it's important to first know what your strength. In any case, it is very important to know what your strengths are and your weaknesses also, and then start working. So you amplify your strengths and you work on your weaknesses, right? Similarly, you amplify what you have. If you are a maven and you are curious, then add more knowledge to yourself, right? Read constantly, because that's going to become your biggest strength as you go along.
True.
But if you realize that you have some weakness, either work on it on your own self, or then supplement it with people around you who are good at that.
Beautiful.
But it's very important to know what you have and what you don't have. So
Right.
for example, because I'm not a connector, I
Mm.
have started talking to people who can get me business, right? Because
Mm.
I don't know people, but I know other people who know people, right?
True.
So
True.
I'm now supplementing it with other people. So that's what you do. If you're not a salesperson, if you're a
Mm.
founder of a
Mm.
company, but you're not a salesperson, you have
Mm.
a great product, it's
Mm.
not going to sell. Then you bring in someone who's good at sales. It's
Correct.
important for you to know what you don't have. That as a leader, I think is very important.
Beautiful, beautifully articulated. Like that perspective that it's important to work on all three of them after understanding what you are, and
Yes.
then amplify that strength of yours, right?
Yes.
Like my case, if you ask me, I'm a very solid character driven category. Uh,
Okay.
so that's the strength that I've always had, and I kind of work. It naturally happens. I don't have to put an extra effort. Now, I'm a
Huh.
salesman. I was a salesman very many years back, and I started my career over a time because I got into learning and development and corporate culture and all that. Maybe that
Hmm.
kind of became a second seat or a third seat for me. But now,
Right.
do I work on it? Yes. Why? As you rightly said, I'm a founder and CEO of my company, so I do that as well. So I think
Right.
it's a lovely up and down of
Yes.
all three of them.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I think I love the examples, guys. You should go read the book, and what Deepika is talking makes tremendous sense. The kind of examples Malcolm talks about in this, in terms of characters and events, is marvelous. You can
Absolutely.
relate to every statement, every para, every word that he's talking about in this book, isn't it?
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful, lovely. Let me talk about this, which I completely relate to, and you spoke about it when we started. The stickiness factor.
Hmm.
What is the stickiness factor, Deepika, and why is it so important? I seem to now start realizing the importance of it in this world that we are in, as against the year when Malcolm wrote it in 2000.
And that's what, I think with books, what I do is I try and apply it to situations around me. So while Malcolm gave me great. So I will come to this later, the broken
Mm,
windows example that he gave. I
mm,
have applied the broken windows story to so many real life situations in my
mm,
life, right? So I think, the beauty of books is to be able to take that and then to apply it in leadership situations and positions that
correct.
you are in. I think that's what is very, very important. But having said that, his examples are beautiful. His stories, his case studies are beautiful. That by itself teaches you so much. Now the stickiness factor. So what Malcolm says is that your message needs to be conveyed in such a manner that it sticks,
Mm,
right? So that is the stickiness factor. And he obviously gave a lot of there was this college example that he spoke about. uh, they wanted to do some kind of inoculation or something they had to do, and the message, how that message. So they first passed around a pamphlet which said कि यहाँ पे हो रहा है, reach here at so and so time. I think some kind of testing that had to happen or something against some viral fever or whatever. And then they realized that the whole message was falling apart. People were not turning up because people really didn't know where. So they added a map. They added a map and more people turned up. That
mm,
simple thing made it so sticky,
yeah.
right? The stickiness factor really is that what makes a message stick and they act on it.
Mm,
If I were to apply it to the real world. Okay, so
mm.
let me give you an example which I love.
Please do. That'll be interesting.
So um, in the many many years
Mm,
in advertising,
mm,
washing powder mein na two ads. I mean, it's a washing powder, right? But two ads, Nirma and Surf Excel, daag अच्छे हैं. I doubt I remember any other washing powder
no,
ad.
no. Nirma, to it was a national anthem movie.
Yes, national anthem and Daag Achhe Hain. And I want to talk about Daag Achhe Hain, because Daag Achhe Hain came out when I was just starting to work in advertising and all of that.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I remember thinking that who are the people whose clothes get the dirtiest? They're young kids, right? And who gets annoyed with it? It's the mothers, right?
Mm,
So Surf Excel took this situation and turned it around on its head and made it positive. So
mm.
they were reaching out. Now everybody washes clothes. But
Yeah.
the people who find it the most annoying are the mothers of younger kids because the
Mm.
clothes are getting dirtier much faster. Right?
Correct.
So they turned that thing around and made it positive. Now they could have spoken about, saaf, they could have spoken about whiteness, everything else, that everybody else is saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they said ki daag achhe hain. Let your
Mm.
kid have fun, right? And it's okay if your kid has fun. I thought it was such a sticky message because these are the women who this is your TA that is the most annoyed with dirty clothes because so many dirty clothes are turning up. Your kid is, you've just put him in a fresh this thing, and now he's gone into the mud again and come back. But they made it very positive, and they said,
Yeah.
"Daag achhe hain, the kid is growing, so it's okay." I found that a sticky message because that took washing powder and made it into such a positive, and they were able to identify exactly whom they were reaching out to, and they made the message very sticky and easy
Mm.
to remember. Daag achhe hain. So I think that is what is a sticky message. I'll give you another example. Like I said, I do team building activities. And every time we do a team building activity, after that, the business head will come or the sales head, whoever, and he will address, the entire sales team, etc. I have seen varying kinds of messages that
Mm.
the sales heads give, right? But the sales, the messages that have stuck have been stories.
True.
So when he's able to pull out analogies and stories which other people can relate to. So there was this
Mm.
one business head who took cricket,
Mm.
and he made this marvelous speech about cricket and sales teams and how it all happens, and he took examples of certain matches,
Beautiful.
because all these guys watch cricket. So he actually pulled out certain matches and he said, तुमको याद होगा उसमें ये हुआ था लेकिन उसने ये किया, कभी भी एक्सपेक्ट नहीं किया था कि ये टीम ऐसे करेगी.
Mm.
And that message was so sticky because he made
Mm.
it so relatable. So you can use
Mm.
large words, you can give fancy presentations. But this guy just took specific cricket matches that everybody would have seen
Mm.
and drove his message. And I saw that team really respond
Mm.
to this guy. And
Mm.
that
Mm.
really, so stickiness of message is so many things. It could be in your product. It could be, but I think most of all for a leader, it is how you convey your message to your teams,
Correct. Correct.
and whether that stays with them or not. And after that story, after that whole cricket thing, about 6 or 7 months later, I called up HR and I said, I'm very keen to know how that team is performing because, I was so impressed with that guy's, message and the way he used cricket and, the way he roused the entire team. So she said, they're really doing well, you know
Beautiful.
because they really bought into his message. It stuck with them, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it.
True.
So I think as a leader, that is very important. The messages that you convey, how well do they stay in the
Mm.
head of your team? That is what is most important.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now you spoke about this cricket example, which is very powerful, and all of us love stories. And the reason why we started the conversation, why are we talking about Jatika tales and Panchatantra? Because they were stories. And
Right.
we could relate to the tigers and lions and rabbits of those stories, and some of them I still have vivid memory. There was a very powerful crane story that used to carry a stick and fly, and वो illustration अभी वैसे दिमाग में बैठा हुआ है. I still there inside my head. Right? So the power of content is always very powerful, right? That you do.
Right. Yeah.
Malcolm beautifully talks about, which is my next question, is he talks about this power of context.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do you see the power of content and the power of context happening? Is it a sequential process, Deepika, or are they parallel events happening? And what is Malcolm trying to say by the power of context to leaders?
I think they are parallel,
Okay.
So I heard a lovely podcast today where somebody said that actually, I think Gary Vee said this in one of his videos where he said content is king, but context is God. Okay. You can have great content, you can have a great message, but if it's in the wrong place at the wrong time, if it's not at the right time, then it's lost. It's completely lost, right? So, the time and the place and the situation, the environment also has to be right. That also decides how whether your message is going to tip or not.
True,
You know,
true.
and that is what is very, very important. And I want to bring this example up. I have used broken windows in so many. I have to use broken windows here.
Please talk about it. Please talk about it.
I read it many years ago, but and I'll tell you how important this whole environment thing is. So in many, so basically what it says is that if you are going past a place which has a broken window, right, automatically you will think that this place is dilapidated. It will lead to more broken windows, right? So because the context is that it's okay for this area to be bad. So एक window अगर broken है, after a point of time you will see all the windows broken. But if you repair that window, then other windows will not get broken. That is the power of the environment that you create, right?
mm,
And
mm,
I think that is what corporate culture also is. So
mm,
that example, another example he gave of the subway example, where he said
mm,
that there was this guy at that point, New York, I think, I don't remember the time, New York had a huge crime rate, right? And the subways, etc. There was a lot of mugging, etc. that used to happen. So there was this one guy who was traveling in the subway,
mm.
and some two or three guys came towards him, and he, because context, because there was a lot of mugging happening around that time in that particular area of New York, suburb of New York. So he pulled out his gun and killed one of the guys, right? At
Mm.
that point, everyone lauded him because that was the context, that was the
Yeah.
environment. This case went into court,
Mm.
and by then things had changed. There was
Mm.
someone in the New York administration who decided that I needed to do something about the subways, make them cleaner, make them safer, right?
Okay.
So while the case was going on in the court, the subways got repaired, they got
Okay.
cleaned up, there were marshals deployed, so it became a cleaner place. So by the time the case came to court,
Mm.
people did not believe that that environment existed. They had forgotten about it. So this
Oh,
guy, for having killed a guy, was lauded 10 years back, but now he was looked at as a criminal. How dare you shoot
oh,
someone? Because
right.
the context had changed. Now I use this to explain corporate culture.
A
You know,
beautiful example.
yeah. So I think that when someone joins your organization, right? By default, I think the majority of the people want to work. Majority of the people want to be happy
Mm.
where they are, right? There will, of course, be certain bad apples everywhere.
Mm.
I think people naturally want to be happy where they are. They want
Mm.
to work, right? But your culture can decide. It is the environment, it is the context that can decide how well people perform
True.
and how well, whether people are happy or not. So, as
Mm.
a leader, you can give the most powerful, sticky message on your
Okay.
vision,
Okay.
but if your context is not there, if you're not supporting it with the environment, okay, it won't happen. Similarly, where you're giving the message, at what time you are giving the message, that is also important, right?
Mm.
Now, if you have, for example, a situation where your company is not doing too well,
Mm.
and you want to give the message of, we have to work really hard, etc.
Mm.
So your context is at what time, during what environment are you
Mm.
giving that message for that
Mm.
message to stay
Mm.
with the organization. So there's, again, with all of Malcolm's books, there are several ways in which you can use,
Mm.
his. So for me, the power of context is all about the environment. It's
Beautiful.
all about where you're giving the message. Again, for younger people, I would explain it in the terms of content. If
Mm.
you're going to put a 30-second video on YouTube, it's not going to work because YouTube is all about longer videos.
True.
Similarly, if you put a long rambly video on Instagram, IGTV, it's not going to work because
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
Instagram is about pretty pictures and shorter videos, right? So context matters. But to me, I have often seen it, as also the corporate culture of the
Mm.
organization.
Mm.
So for a leader, I think that environment is very important. To create that environment is very, very important for people to give their best. And that really is the power of context.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. For example, if you go by sales, sales is a content, right? But the
Hmm.
power of a sales tool becomes even more powerful only when it sits on a product and there's a context on which it's applied, right?
Absolutely.
Else, आप सेब भी बेच रहे हो, गाड़ी भी बेच रहे हो, घड़ी भी बेच रहे हो, you can't do the same sales skills everywhere, right? The
No,
same sales skill has to take a different metamorphosis when it's about soap selling, when it is about laptop selling, when it is about an airplane selling, right?
absolutely. And that is what, again, with your teams also, you have to
Yeah,
understand what is going to work, what is not going to work.
true.
Uh, you know, um, the knowledge or the trainings that you're giving them, what is going to work for a certain team may not work for a
Mm.
certain team. May
Mm.
work for a certain industry, may not work for a certain industry,
True.
right? So you have to map all of that and then arrive at what your messages
I
or your
know, I
trainings,
know, I
etc.,
know.
are going to be.
It's been 21 years in this learning and development and leadership space. I've always had these questions many times coming in. Rajiv, aren't you bored of what you're doing? You've been doing this for many years. I said, look, the word leadership is still a mystic word for me. I've read tons of books. I've heard so much from people. Still, it's a very evasive word for me. It eludes me every time. But the context changes. So I work with multiple industries, multiple organizations, multiple levels of leadership. So इतना perspective बदल जाता है, right? So there's no element of boredom at all because the context creates a complete change in experience.
Yes, yes. Even within, within teams within, companies that I work with, workshops that I do, within teams, again, it keeps changing. The environment keeps changing. The context keeps changing, like you rightly pointed out, so it's very, very fascinating to see how certain teams behave, and the same workshop for different, because the context, again, like you rightly said, changes. So the same workshop for, let's say, a print company goes very differently because of the challenges that they are facing. I was doing a sales workshop for print, company. Their challenges were totally different. I was doing the same thing for a banking company, and their challenges were
Completely
totally
different.
different.
True.
So yeah, the context keeps changing.
I agree. So I respond to them saying it's not boredom, is in fact even more interesting because her session is a different session.
Yeah,
Participants are different, the audience are different, the function they represent are so different. Hence the
absolutely,
meaning of the entire workshop changes, isn't it? Lovely, lovely.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for bringing out this part of context. It's very, very important. I think it's important, Deepika. I love the example that you gave of YouTube video length and Instagram. I'm sure the youngsters would relate to that a lot, right? You can be a great content creator. अगर आप उल्टा करोगे तो पूरा just fizzles out, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
important, so important. It also brings a very powerful learning, Deepika. As I was listening to you, and my mind is thinking, for these budding leaders, more than functional knowledge, which is the content that they need to work on, it's about understanding the business and the context and the environment becomes so more important so that they can use the power of context, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Uh,
So I uh, so if I can give another example,
mm,
um, there was this young girl. She used to come to the gym, and for a long time I didn't see her. This
mm,
pre-COVID, of course.
mm,
For a long time I didn't see her, and then she suddenly turned up. And I asked her, "But where were you? I didn't see you for a very long time." She said, "Oh, I got promoted." I said, "That's a good thing. The way you're saying it, it sounds like a bad thing. Why are you looking so upset about it?" So she said, I was very happy being on my own. I used to
mm.
manage my own time. Now I have to manage the time of three other people. And I used to be the star. And now, there are some other people that, other stars, So there is one kid in my team. So, for her, the context completely changed,
True.
So again, this is something that you can apply to her, context. So
Correct.
here is this girl who was a individual performer. She was doing very well,
Mm.
and all she had to manage was her time, her clients. And
And
suddenly
performance.
she's grown and she has a team, and her context has completely changed.
Yeah.
And organizations, I think, also need to manage things like this. So for
Mm.
example, what is the organization doing for first time managers, because they are
Mm.
grappling for
True.
they need help, like, because their context has changed. They had a set of clients, they have to go to that client, they have to get in their revenue, that's it. Now there's a team, there's feedback. Oh my god, they're not used to feedback from
New concepts.
below, new concepts. You have to manage someone's time, you have to figure out तुमने ये क्यों नहीं किया, यहाँ जाना था. Now your
Mm.
totality of numbers depends on other people for performing, which is just so
Yeah.
frustrating,
Yeah.
so that is again a context change for her. So her performance is now depending upon a change in her environment and the
True.
context. So that's about. So now suddenly she has gone from not performing to from performing to suddenly grappling. She's
Mm.
suddenly slid.
Mm.
So that is again, these are small things that organizations and leaders need to understand, that this is what happens when, for a mini context change also can change the performance of an individual, right? So
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think all new managers should be going through some sort of training. I'm sure a lot of organizations do it, but I
They
also
do
know a
that.
lot of organizations don't do it.
Don't do that.
But
Yeah.
there has to be training for first time managers, because it's
Yeah.
very difficult grappling with that,
I
because her
agree.
context had changed.
I agree. I agree. I've had organizations, I agree with you, Deepika, because there are some organizations who think 10 साल से बंदा इंडिविजुअल काम कर रहा है या लड़की इंडिविजुअल काम कर रही है उसको टीम को करवाने में कौन सा मुश्किल वाला काम है दे
हाँ,
डोंट गेट इट कि करवाने में और करने में जमीन आसमान
बहुत
का फर्क
बहुत फर्क है, बहुत फर्क है, exactly.
है I know, and I completely empathize as you empathizing with those first-time managers. Seriously,
Yeah.
true. Lovely. Let me take you to the last one question, which I thought was very important. Now, this was very interesting. Till I read this, I didn't know there's something called the magic number of 150.
हाँ.
I said, यार ये तो मैंने कभी ऐसे सोचा ही नहीं. This is phenomenal thinking.
Hmm.
Tell me, why is it important from a leadership angle?
I've grappled with this. I've actually grappled with this magic number of 150, as he explained it. So very simply, that beyond 150, the fabric kind of breaks apart. So you can't, hold the message sort of, you can't control beyond 150 people, you can't control the message, you can't hold it all together, etc. That's what he was saying. But I think, dynamics are such now that I'm not so sure. So yeah, I completely agree. So simple thing like, when I'm doing a team building activity, for example, then the minute I have a certain number of people, it kind of falls apart. People are not, I don't know how to explain this, but people are, so it's all about, bonding, and it's all about collaboration, etc. But beyond 150, it's very difficult to handle, right? So 150K beyond, it becomes very difficult. You have no control of what people are doing.
I agree.
So I think with leadership also, what happens is that, the magic number of 150 people, if your teams are growing, you need to start delegating. So I have always looked at it as some form of delegation that needs to, kick in. And you need to start figuring out how, if you're going to hold it all together, are there going to be pockets of people? You have to start trusting people to sort of, so you need to have a very strong second. So for young leaders out there, this is what I'm going to say, that beyond a point, you will not be able to control it. You will not be able to control the messages percolating down. You will not be able to control what is happening. So you need to delegate. You need to learn the art of delegation. I think it's the most difficult thing to do. It is a difficult thing to do.
You don't want to let go.
You don't want to let go. Also, sometimes it's a trust thing. You don't know whether you can trust someone to get people to do the same kind of work that you've been, getting people.
Because there is also a doubt in our head of the other person's capability and competency. You think the person can deliver the way we can deliver.
Absolutely. So, that trust has to be developed, that yes, this person is also capable. So as you grow, while Malcolm speaks about 150, in various organizations, it'll be a different number. But you have to learn to delegate as a leader. Don't try and control everything, and don't try and keep everything. You will grow only if you learn to delegate. Seriously, there is only so much that one person can do. But if you learn to work in a team and you learn to get people to work with you, that is also an art. You will achieve so much more. That's my learning from this whole.
I think you're right, because if we can just stitch the earlier point that we were talking about, Deepika, if the number goes beyond an optimum number, it could be 150, could be 200, depending on the situation, the stickiness factor will fizzle off.
Yes.
The content is going to just fly off the window. The context is not going to get established any which way. So जब stickiness नहीं हो रहा है, content नहीं हो रहा है, context नहीं हो रहा है, तो चल क्या रहा है?
बिल्कुल. Very well put. Very, very well put.
True.
So at 150, it begins to disintegrate.
Yeah. Very lovely. Superb. Thank you so much. So that brings me to the last very powerful question that I want to ask you, Deepika, is you are in the corporate, you spent very many years with organizations. Some of the organizations, the founders, as you said, have done very well for themselves. Some of them are great inspiration, but today they are in a bad light.
Yeah.
It's great learning. I've had a couple of them similarly in such industries, so I talk to them. They give me very different perspectives of indoor, outdoor. Nazariya bahut alag hota hai. Then you went on to start an organization of yours. Today you're big on the social media. People look up to you, listen to you on what you're doing on the LinkedIn space. Commendable job. Tell me, across all this different phases of you that you moved in, what are two big advices that you will give to the budding leaders listening to you, Deepika? Could be from the context of this book or could be from your own journey. I leave it to you.
Okay. So if I were to take my, whole journey, I would say that, two things. One is always have an open mind. And the second is always have a curious mind. So I'll explain both. Open mind is, life is not black and white. People are not wrong or right? So I think you just have to enter into any conversation, any team, any company, any social occasion with a very open mind, non-judgmental, that everyone has a point of view. You are open to that point of view. You will listen and learn from it, right? And I think the people who are successful are people who do have an open mind, who are willing to listen to another's perspective. I think that really helps. So always never be judgmental, always be willing to listen to another point of view, to another person's perspective. The second thing, which actually should have been the first because I really believe in it, is to have a curious mind. Knowledge will take you places, so curious mind, always keep adding to your knowledge, always, because that is really, really going to help you in life. And knowledge comes from so many places. It comes from books, of course. It comes from any other material that you read. It comes from people. It comes from movies sometimes,
Yeah.
But you have to be curious and you have to keep adding knowledge to yourself. And when I say knowledge, I don't just mean, functional skills, certificates, courses. Those you will do as you go along.
Mm.
But I mean just, enriching things, that how do things function, just enriching things, just keep adding that to yourself. So an
Yeah.
open mind and a curious mind will take you places. That's what you should do.
Beautiful. I think both are very important. The open mind and curious mind. In fact, if we link it to this book, can make you a connector.
Yes, yes,
The curious mind will make you a maven.
yeah,
And if you're able to do that, then you can probably become a salesman as well, and eventually find your own tipping points and tip off at
yes,
different stages
yes,
of your life of growth, isn't
yes,
it? I think
yes.
very true, very true. I think you're
But
very right, Deepika, because today the kind of world in which the budding leaders are very different to our times when we started our career very many years back, right?
hmm,
Not to sound very old here, but definitely it's far more expanding. Opportunities are even more than what we had initially. There is avenues galore in front of you. So if you're not going to be having an open mind and a curious mind, I think you'll miss out on the race, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. But this book is a must read. So to all of you who are watching this is a book that will give you more than anything else. I think what I marveled about this book was that it's not just about the concept of how you can,
Yeah.
the tipping point of success or whatever it is. Within that there are mini concepts like this, whole law, power of context, for you to understand.
Yeah.
And more than anything else, the book has a lot of small case studies, stories
Stories.
that are so fascinating, to go through, because they will help you understand a lot of situations that you will come across in your life.
True, true,
I think
true.
it's a great book, one of my favorite books, really.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Deepika, for coming on this event, talking about this powerful book and articulating it so beautifully. I love the energy as always that I see it on LinkedIn. Today I'm seeing it in flesh and blood across this channel. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, I loved it, Rajiv. Thank you once again for having me on this. I will look forward to watching this. But thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I'm so excited that you actually reached out to me about this. So,
Oh my, I'm happy that we connected because I've been following you post for a good time, and I thought I should definitely reach out to you because I love that she means business. The why of Simon Sinek that he talks about in his book Start With Why. For me, I think the she means business was a tremendous concept. I don't think
yes,
anybody had started that. I think the nobility of that entire business model of yours comes out very strongly, Deepika. That's a very
yes,
strong compliment I want to give you because it is a tremendous need,
yes,
and you picked it up,
yes,
isn't it?
yes,
I
yes.
think I always wanted to connect. I'm happy that we could connect, and I'm thank you and thankful to you that you accepted the invitation and came on. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Rajiv. Thank you so much. Thank
Such a
you.
lovely conversation. See you soon. Once things open up, I love to fly down to the city and see
Yes,
you.
we must meet.
We
Yes,
must. Yeah. Bye bye. You have a lovely evening.
you too. Bye bye. Thank you.